I thought you were finished with them, Mick. His mother frowned. They're my family, too. You should give them a chance. They care about me. His father's brows angled down, judgment on his features. They don't care a thing about your immortal soul. They're too happy to damn you without a thought. He's a lure to your homosexuality, and she's the source of it all. We never should have allowed you to be around them. The vehemence in his father's tone, the edge of hatred in it, had Mick rising to defend Jessi and Adam before he closed the subject. That's untrue. It's also something I don't want to talk about with either of you. I love Jessi and Adam, and I have since I was a kid. Mr. and Mrs. Franklin, too. You have a family the Lord saw fit to bless you with. If you spent more time with us and less with outside influences, you'd have a wife and children by now. Instead, you're covered in tattoos and surrounded by temptation, his father said. This has been a pretty good visit so far, so let's stop now before anything else hurtful gets said. Please, Mick added. He did need to talk through all this stuff with them, but not in the middle of a party, and certainly not when he was in the same place with Jessi and Adam for the first time in years. His parents nodded, frowning. They made their excuses, including a few about why some of his siblings weren't there. His older brother and sister had come by earlier. They would be there for him, even if they didn't always understand his choices. The rest of his biological family was a grab bag of messed up relationships. He was working on letting go of it all, but that was way off in the future. Right then, it still weighed on him. By the time they'd left, so had the Franklins. He tipped his chin and grinned at Asa and Duke after a quick hug of both men's girlfriends, and found Adam and Jessi. Ready? Are you sure there are still people here? Jessi said. There are. Most of them work here and are hanging around for free booze and food. The guests are gone. The photographer is headed out. Where are we off to? He wanted to be with them, away from everyone else. Felt like he had to, or lose his nerve. Come to my house, Adam said. I've got food and a wine cellar. Mick grinned at him. Well, you gonna need that much booze? Jessi snorted. Whatever it takes to get you two talking at long fucking last. They both goggled at her. What? It's not that I never say the F word. It's a great word after all. I'm just more judicious than you two are. How he'd lived years without her wasn't something Mick wanted to think on just then. She'd been his heart for so long, and then he'd cut her off. That absence had been a raw wound that had never healed. But there she was, and he let himself love it. Love her. You're absolutely correct, Jessilynn. You're far more judicious than us in all ways, I'd wager. Mick kissed her forehead. Adam gave them both his address, and they left to follow him to his place. He was nearly to his bike when Duke and Asa called his name. Mick could have pretended not to hear them, but as he'd decided to finally talk to Adam and Jessi after all this time, he might as well be open with Asa and Duke too. Within reason. He kept walking to his bike, but waved to acknowledge them both. So, you want to tell us something? A few things? Duke asked as they met up at his bike. A lot of things? Asa added quietly. I know I've been putting you off about this whole thing, and I know I promised to tell you, and I will. It is a truly long and complicated story, though. Right now, I'm on my way to Adam's place to talk with him and Jessi, so it has to wait. I've loved Jessi since I was that lonely 7-year-old who she dragged into her birthday party because she saw him watching from the trees. Duke's expression softened, and then hardened. I want to talk about your parents, too. One giant life-altering thing at a time. I'm not a wizard, Mick said. Ace's laughter startled them both. As for Adam, well, that's complicated too, but loving him was one of the things that sent me back to the army, and more. Jesus, a lot more. Mick blew out a long breath. Don't keep them waiting. We'll be around when you're ready. Duke tipped his chin before hugging Mick. So, both of them? This isn't a love triangle situation, right? Asa asked him.